Kia ora koutou. I'm Jennifer Whitty. I'm a fashion researcher, a sustainable fashion researcher, and I'm here to interview the wonderful Doris Dupont.
Yeah, so I'm Doris Dupont, the wonderful Doris Dupont. So the person who established the New Zealand Fashion Museum and has been involved in organising today, and we're here to share a little bit about what the Fashion Museum is.
So Doris, where is the Fashion Museum?
The question that people always ask me, where is the Fashion Museum? The Fashion Museum today is here in the Auckland Central Library. The Fashion Museum is a digital first museum, so we don't actually have a building or a collection. We are where we are active, and so today we have been very active here in the library.
So that's quite a bit for people to get their head around, but it means then that you're flexible and dynamic and
responsive, and it reflects really the ambition of the Fashion Museum, which is to be accessible to everyone, and so to be in a space like this. There were people who have come specifically for things, but we've had this wonderful casual audience that was just at the library.
Amazing,
and has joined in, which has been wonderful.
Totally, so really inclusive and public and encouraging.
Yes, all of those things.
Amazing.
Yes,
So if we were to, what is the Fashion Museum?
Well, so what is the Fashion Museum? The Fashion Museum originated really because there are collections of garments in all sorts of institutions, but garments that are underutilised. I mean, clothing is such a powerful tool to tell all sorts of stories. So to tell the stories of science, the materiality of fabrics, to tell stories about the history of a society, about the social norms. It's a language is another sort of rich theme that runs through clothing too. So it's this wonderful tool to be able to storytell with, and storing things in the basement doesn't do that.
True,
we
getting out and activating it and bringing it into people's lives. Amazing, yeah. So maybe if you wanted to go, like, when did you establish it and why?
Yeah, so 2010 it was established as a charitable trust with a board. It started out with our very first introduction, really, before we had the website, was actually an exhibition. And so an exhibition, it was almost an exhibition that sort of introduced the Fashion Museum, because it was about a label called LJ. And LJ was a New Zealand clothing manufacturer who manufactured from 1938 to 1988. So in the story of those garments, you have 50 years of New Zealand social and cultural history. And so that is where we started. And since then, we've grown and responded to what's happening in society, where people's interests are.
How do you decide on the
on the
subject?
Exhibitions?
For the exhibitions.
So this is the Fashion Museum for people who haven't visited us before. This is us. We're just an online museum, and we have a range of things that we have done and collected over time. And so exhibitions is often our starting point. So an exhibition really is a question that we're trying to interrogate. And it arises probably from a social concern or something that's happening in society. So as I said, the LJ was the first one. The second exhibition we did was actually Black in Fashion. And Black in Fashion was on in 2011 when the Rugby World Cup was being played here, and it was inevitable. It was inevitable that Auckland, the whole of New Zealand, would be black. And so that question arose about why we're so obsessed with black and wearing black here in New Zealand. And the exhibition tried to, at least have that discussion. Have that discussion. And in this exhibition that's here today in the library is an exhibition about 11 years on. It's looking much more specifically at how people dress. So it was an exhibition where we no longer curated, really. We gave the curation over to our participants to curate themselves, to share how they fashioned themselves, how they chose to present themselves.
Yeah, and that's a subject we'll probably talk more about, like that kind of decentering of fashion and decolonial kind of activities that you're giving the power to the people. That's it's amazing.
Yes, and that is indeed how the exhibitions are built up, and they come from something that's happening that we're interested
the zeitgeist
in.
Or
the zeitgeist, or a question that arises about value in clothing.
Is there any memorable kind of insights you've gained, or what people have said about different exhibitions? Like, has it shifted their thinking?
Well, I think the most remarkable thing about exhibitions is exactly as what's happened here today, is that everyone engages with it. So men and women and children, old and young, all engage with that, and feel empowered to participate and to have thoughts and feelings about their clothing.
Yeah, very strong ones.
Yes, which you will have encountered with your workshop today.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been a really, really enriching experience. Yeah, no, and thank you for hosting it and making it happen here. Did you want to tell us anything about particular stories, and also what is in the exhibition? If one asks, what is in?
So when in an exhibition, there are usually clothes around that theme. So, for example, home sewing. We did an exhibition, and so we had garments from people right across New Zealand. And the most beautiful thing about home sewn garments is you can have the same pattern and have two completely different dresses because people choose their fabric. Yeah, exactly. So it's a very much a creative process and a personal expression.
Were you aware of how radical this was when you started it up?
The Fashion Museum? Probably not. It probably was. It is how I work. I'm wearing a jacket that's made with artwork from Paul Hartigan. So all my clothing practice, making practice, when I had my own label, was collaborative, working with different people, and tapping into their skills. And just as today is this huge collaboration of the people who are presenting, but also of the wonderful people who have come and joined the workshops and participated in them.
That's fantastic, isn't it? That as a designer, you become a facilitator for other knowledge holders and sharing and amplifying.
Yeah, it was beautiful with the sewing and the makerspace that. The woman who was taking the class learned a new way to make a knot in the thread. So we always learn if we open the space to exchange.
Totally, or open our minds as well, and be prepared to be, not always an expert. Always, amazing.
Yeah, and we've had some. So within the museum, there are the exhibitions, and out of the exhibitions, there are stories. So stories that relate to the exhibition, but also
do you want to go into any in particular? If there's.
Well, the walk is we did a little walk today, which is just a tiny section of the walk exhibition. The walk exhibition was held in Smith & Co's, and it looked at the change in Auckland City, really, where all manufacturing used to be done in the city centre. So the machinists and the pattern cutters and everyone would come to work on the bus. Everything was city centred, and that's gone. And so the Walk exhibition gathered garments that were made within a half-kilometre radius of Smith & Co's. So that was just a wonderful, I suppose, sort of response to the changes. Everybody who's been through the city will see the huge upheaval that's happening, everything that's changing. And so it's really nice to reflect on our heritage.
Where we were and where we're.
On our heritage and things.
Walking backwards into the future.
Walking backwards into the future. So all sorts. So there are personal stories. So Yanni Split is a designer primarily in textile arts. Tay Tibble is one of our participants in the Two Fashion exhibition. So all the stories in the Fashion Museum are the stories of the designers, of the manufacturers, of the models, of photographers, their portraits of these people, but also interestingly, some trends and things. So I know there's one story in there all about white, which I thought was actually quite interesting today with your session about colour. So there's a whole story about white, but there's also a lovely story in there about the British Colour Council. And the British Colour Council used to put out a sheet with all the colours that were coming out for next season.
The British Colour Council.
British Colour Council, and New Zealand followed the British Colour Council. But what was wonderful about it was that they said that these were the colours for the spring or the summer, which meant that the manufacturers produced the dresses and clothes in those colourways, but the milliners made their hats in those colourways and the shoes.
A lot of forward planning.
A lot of forward planning. So you could buy an outfit with matching shoes and hat and handbag.
Like
because
the
the Colour Council had decided which colours we were wearing this year.
Wow,
yeah,
society.
Amazing, isn't it?
That is incredible. So maybe just like knowing all you know, like this rich
I read the
archive,
stories in the Fashion Museum.
So you would be really well primed. What do you think the future of fashion is?
Well, I think we saw it here today,
right,
absolutely,
okay.
in that helping people to connect to their clothing again. So not just looking good, sometimes it is just looking good, you just want to look good, or looking appropriate for where you're going, but also, owning it, caring it. I heard from someone about Diane's workshop, and she gave some, fantastic tips for people to help them care for their clothing, so to extend the life of the clothes. There is enough material in New Zealand for us not to have to import a single thing for
already
now for decades. So I'm hoping that
all that caring and
connecting again with your clothing, your own clothing, but also with the materiality of clothing, that people might
and be more resourceful and creative.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be amazing if this was every day, this kind of space?
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Like imagine shopping malls, something like this, where they're, sites of knowledge and resourcefulness and not just...
not just new.
Yeah.
Yep. New and disposable.
Yeah.
So we've done exhibitions, we've done the stories that come out of that. So and then the collection. So we worked today upstairs. So we gather clothing. So the clothing that we bring together for an exhibition is documented and put into the Fashion Museum. So not real clothes, but photos of clothes.
Okay.
Photos of clothes, pictures of clothes. And of hats.
So it's an amazing resource, and our students are using it. And others,
well, it's a wonderful resort. I mean, it's a fun place to go. You can go in there and play around and look for something to wear to a ball, or to an 80s dress up, or whatever. But you can also, if you're a maker, you can look at, you can search it by collars. So get some ideas for collars that you might put onto a garment. You can search it by decade. There's all sorts of ways. And the garments that are in here also, because they come from people in the community, it means that they have their story. They have the story of where the person bought it, or made it, or wore it, or repaired it. All of those things are in. Oh, well, this is a lovely one. This hat was made for Jacinda Ardern to go to the funeral. Thank you. So this,
that's right, Dolly Varden. Yes,
and
I read about this. This is amazing.
It links in with Dolly Varden, who's a milliner, and her.
I love that. Passing on the baton to the next generation, and I think that's also kind of what you're doing here. Maybe like as well, a lot of museums. Actually, the garments really belong to aristocrats, or the very upper class that had a big wardrobe, so they could preserve some things.
Exactly.
But you might
that's one of my. I mean, when we started this, we said, the clothes that are in the conventional museums are useless clothes because they were never worn.
I think that's
otherwise they wouldn't be in good nick.
Exactly. People don't maybe realise that they're not necessarily clothes that were actually worn.
Yeah.
And do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's exactly it. Yeah, no, I just love that we celebrate clothing and the wearing of clothing and what it means to people. Why would you keep something? This is a beautiful story. These are young women who were just, there was their last, they just graduated from Teachers Training College and they went to the city. And to celebrate. And one of the women who sent us this photo, she described too what each of these women were wearing. So this is, 1960, I think, something like that. 1958.
Yeah.
So from 1958, she gave us a story this year. She remembered what her friends were wearing.
Oh my God! Wow.
But that's that relationship with your clothing.
That time, that place. And you probably really considered your purchase and chose really.
Well, they made them themselves.
Oh, well,
I think
there's
often.
that. Yeah. Wow.
But that you would remember, so many years later, a garment, and I think we had less, and we had much more affection and a relationship. Hard to care for too. So is there anything anyone wants to ask about the Fashion Museum while we're here? Ella.
I arrived late, so I don't know
Yep.
If I had plans to contribute,
Yes.
photos and stuff, how would I do that?
Email hello@New Zealand Fashion Museum. Yeah. And you'll get a lovely reply. Whether it's a rejection or an acceptance, it will be a lovely reply.